Yeah, it is.
Yeah, we're doing that.
Yeah, we're doing it again. Hey, welcome back.
Welcome back. I missed you.
I know it feels like it's only been a month, but it feels like it's been 17 years because time means nothing anymore.
Yeah. Well, time got all mixed up over the holidays where we were all like, what day is it? What year? Oh, is it 2020 still? So it feels like it.
Yeah, Dan and I didn't go anywhere. We were going to have people over, and then everybody we know, well, not everybody we know, but we had a few hits of like people saying, "Oh, I'm sick. I can't be around anybody." And so we eventually just said, "Screw it." We just spent New Year's by ourselves watching the ball drop. We did like hop onto a Zoom really quick with a couple friends to have a drink at midnight, but then it was very like not exciting this year. I don't know if you felt the same way.
Well, I, of course, went to a New Year's Eve party, a small New Year's Eve party with just a couple people.
Mm-hmm.
And we had a COVID outbreak on New Year's Day. So,
oh boy.
It was a very fun evening. And then next day, not so fun, but the times, right?
Times, they are a change. And we were watching the ball drop in New Year's Rockin' Eve or whatever it is on ABC, and there wasn't a lot of people there, and everybody just looked like not happy to be around.
Womp,
womp, womp. And everybody was wearing these really terrible Planet Fitness hats, like Planet Fitness. I don't know if you saw the ball drop.
No. I saw it, but I wasn't paying attention to all that. At the end, I saw
it. Had those tall hats that like those.
Oh yeah, those are weird. Yeah.
Funny,
that
weird.
Blocked everyone's view behind them.
Right, and they all were like heavily Planet Fitness branded, and it was just it just felt like, wow, this is like what it looked like the dystopian New Year's celebrations you'd see in like Total Recall or something, where it's everything's branded, nobody's having fun. Yeah. And everything was too expensive.
The funniest New Year's Eve show to me is, and this is not a political thing I'm about to say, is CNN, because it's really funny to see Anderson Cooper and then Andy Cohen usually gets on there, and they're not in their like, we're reporting the news mode. They're in their it's a party mode, and they're having drinks, and so they're a little tipsy. And I always found their New Year's Eve show to be so funny because it's just so weird that it's CNN and they're like not in their CNN-y kind of personality, like they're just not. And I always thought it was funny.
And they're getting loaded.
Yeah, and they're like talking about it, and it's just like the opposite of what a news channel is for one night. And it's like, yes.
And we were also talking about how weird it is to be in the year 2022. Like it sounds very futuristic.
I know.
And it
does. It's weird.
Yeah.
And I was listening to the song. It's not a great song by Justin Bieber. It's called Beauty and the Beast, or so. It's kind of a beat, Beauty and the Beat. It's a little hokey. But in the song, he said, we're going to party like it's 2030 tonight. And I just was like, wait, what? That sounds so weird to me. I don't know. It just sounded so weird to me because it's like, when I was growing up, it's like, we're going to party like it's 1999. And I'm like, here he is saying 2030. And I was like, what?
Yeah. And 1999 was what, 22 years ago? 23 years ago?
Yeah.
And now 2030 is eight years from now?
It's crazy.
How did we end up here? What time?
How did we get so old, Ralph?
We're getting old. We took a ride on the DeLorean and we got dropped off and we did not go back.
No, but we're getting wiser.
Well, speak for yourself.
I actually laughed at myself as that came out of my mouth a little bit on the inside.
Yeah, I don't think anybody of our generation gets wiser. We just get more upset with everything.
Yeah, upset, don't give a crap anymore, that kind of thing. But, well, Happy New Year, friend. Regardless,
Happy New Year, friend.
I have to say that. I know everyone's sick of hearing it already after 5 days.
Well, people are still getting reacquainted with each other, so I'm happy to hear Happy New Year for at least another week until I take my Christmas decorations down.
Yes, I haven't done that either, but that
Yeah.
should happen this weekend.
Yeah, probably this weekend we'll take it down. Speaking of New Year's,
Yes.
I was thinking, I did a post on TikTok earlier this week about it. And I think in our line of work, it comes up with the, self-help, self-care, people making resolutions,
Yes.
I've never been a fan of resolutions, even when I wasn't a coach or wasn't thinking about it. It felt so forced to me. And
Right.
now it's still a big thing, people making resolutions left and right each year. And I thought it would be an interesting topic to tackle today. Like, why, I don't know what the question is. Why resolutions? Why do people feel the need to make resolutions every new year? And why do they fail so quickly?
I was thinking about this today too, and I think that it's twofold. One fold would be the
first fold.
I made that all up. You know what I'm trying to say. One thing is, I think that over the holidays we get so out of our routines, and so some of our self-care goes out the window, and we're having more drinks than maybe we usually do, and eating more. We're all over the place because our schedules are bonkers with days off, with everything we have to do, all the stressors that it ends, and we're like, oh gosh, I got to get myself back on track. But and coupled with that is it's the new year, and it's like a new beginning, and we all have high hopes that this year's going to be better than the past two. And so I think it's both those things. And as far as why we often fail, it's kind of what I talk to my client, in my opinion, it's what I talk to my clients about all the time. We get these lofty, when we make these lofty changes, I don't know if that's the right grammar, but these big changes we want to make, we come up with these big old ideas, and they sound amazing. And we're going to do this, and I'm going to do this, and I'm going to do treadmill every day, and I'm going to read a book every week or whatever. And we set ourselves up for failure, because that's not how change happens. And so the way I work in my practice is baby steps. And I might have stolen that from the movie What About Bob, but I did a little bit. If anyone's listening and is older like me, great movie, 80s, Bill Murray. Watch if you want. Mm-hmm. But anyway, it's just the whole idea of being able to break things down into manageable small steps if you want to be successful. Because to act like change is going to be one day I'm eating tons of stuffing and turkey, drinking lots of wine, and then the next week I'm going to be at the gym every day and eating salads is just ridiculous. Yeah. You're not going to do it. And then we get frustrated because we set our expectations and our goals too high, and then we just give up.
Yeah. You touched on so many amazing things, and I want to unpack every single one of them. I think one thing that you said that I referenced when I kind of led into the show was, the beginning, starting something at the beginning of the year feels forced. And I think it's because we like having that kind of arbitrary start point, that the start of the race. Like, think about it. That's what I do. Like, oh, I'll do it on Monday. I'll start on Monday. It's the beginning of a new week. I'll start on, what I mean? So it's like the new year is like that times 1,000, because it's like, oh, it's a new year. I'll start everything on the new year. It's like that arbitrary thing where we like pick a point. We're like, okay, go. And the second point that you made, I love, and I preach that all the time, is resolutions don't work because they're too big. They're too vague. And it's too far of a leap from where we're at. Mm-hmm. Right. It doesn't do you any good. First of all, I want to go back and say, I heard this from somebody else, and I love it. And I'm trying to remind myself of it. Why do you even need to do a resolution in the first place? A lot of times we feel like you need to do a resolution because you need to do a resolution. You're just doing it because you feel like you have to.
Yeah.
Maybe you don't need to change anything. Maybe you're doing good right now. So making a resolution just seems silly, and I think it speaks to looking at where you're at presently on your path and saying, you know, why do I feel like I need to make a resolution? I am creative, resourceful, and whole just as I am right now. I'm chugging along. I'm doing pretty good. I don't think I need to make a resolution. That's okay. You know, a lot of times people feel guilty because they don't make a resolution and they're like, oh, I'm missing this opportunity to make this huge change. You're not missing an opportunity. It's okay. It's an arbitrary, the whole calendar is arbitrary. It started from some Roman, you know, Caesar something emperor, you know, it's people have been adding in months and taking out months. It's like, that's why September, October, November, December don't make any sense, because somebody added June and July in there, July or August, because they're two Roman emperors. September used to be the 7th month. Now it's that's why it's September 7, October 8, November 9, December 10.
Yeah.
Because that's where they used to be. But then 2 Roman emperors said, screw this, I'm awesome, I'm going to put myself in the calendar. And then it screwed everything up. So it's all arbitrary. Time has no meaning, especially during COVID. Time has no meaning. But yeah, it's all arbitrary. So those are really good points about, number one, first of all, do you even have to make a resolution? And if you do, if you say, yes, there are things I want to change, going back to the second point you made, the second fold, you know, sometimes it's a leap too far. And we, you know, maybe I like eating, stuffing, and drinking wine. I don't have to cut that all out whole cloth, because then I feel like I'm punishing myself. And I think you actually brought that point up in a show a long time ago.
I did. I know what you're referencing.
You know what I'm talking about, of the diets as feeling
exercise,
punitive instead of I forget what the other term is.
Yeah, I think that I actually didn't even make that connect, but when you started talking about it, I was like, oh yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, the whole idea that this concept of self-care versus punishing yourself, kind of being critical of yourself and putting a lot of pressure on yourself because you should, which is my least favorite that we do to ourselves. And, you know, how are we talking to ourselves around making changes, such as diet, such as exercise? How much are we pushing ourselves? You know, what's the emotional state and the mental talk? What's the internal dialogue that's going on around that? Because if that is negative and punishing and critical, then what you're doing very well may be the opposite of self-care and could be possibly somewhat self-destructive.
I love that. Yeah. And I tie it back to what you said about eating, stuffing, and drinking wine. I
love stuffing and I love wine. So
I am
plate of stuffing in a glass of wine.
I am the biggest fan of stuffing and wine. I would write them fan letters if I could. If they had a mailing address, I would write them.
Exactly.
Yeah, I love stuffing and I love wine. They are two of the most amazing things ever invented by human culture. And that doesn't pair well with the self-talk that says, I'm too fat, I'm too out of shape, I'm too this, you know, I don't deserve to eat stuffing or drink wine. I don't deserve to do that. I need to get myself. That's terrible. And you know, if you're speaking like that to yourself about things that you enjoy, it just sets up this weird thought loop in your head, this pattern of, oh, all these things I enjoy, I now don't deserve. And then it all feels like punishment. And then, okay, what's left? You know, you're not really living and enjoying life. You're just punishing yourself for no reason.
Yeah, it can make January an even more depressing month than it can be already, because it's like, even if you overindulged in whatever it is and maybe weren't as active, like you kind of already said. So why does that mean you got to give all of it up? Maybe you got to scale back. Maybe we put the pie, you know, maybe a piece of pie a week instead of a piece of pie a night. Right. Maybe a glass of wine every couple nights instead of a couple, like maybe some people were drinking much more than that, right? So all that, maybe we're going out way more nights we stay in, like, or whatever the case may be. But it doesn't, like you said, you don't have to go from like 100 to back to 0 and then just start sort of depriving yourself. Because I actually think that I'm sure there is some science on this, I don't know it, that there's quite a drop in mood can happen around this time exactly. All the hubbub is over, positive or negative, whatever it was over the holidays. It was a lot going on. And then we hit the new year. We're happy about that for a week. Like, we're in that now. And then we're like, now what? And it's cold and it's dark and I feel puffy. And,
You and me both.
I'm not motivated at work. I'm hearing a lot of people saying that.
Oh yeah. Yeah. The seasonal affective disorder, I have a tinge of that. I have a sun lamp that I use when I need it. So I get that too. That's a great point of putting all this added extra punishment on ourselves for resolutions. Adding to that, January is just a bleak month to begin with, depending on where you are in the world. But in the United States, yes, it's pretty bleak.
In Pennsylvania,
Where are
Florida
we
right now
at?
is absolute. I forgot where we were. We're in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. Welcome, friends. We
Welcome.
are broadcasting live from Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. I've got it. Everything's fine. No, I mean, depending where you are, it's absolutely beautiful in Florida right now. So,
right, yeah, depending where you're at, that seasonal affective disorder can be either greater or lesser. But, and like you said before, tying it to, oh, I've overindulged over the holidays, now I'm going to like snap myself back on track. It doesn't work. It never works. That any kind of quick change like that, and I know I do baby steps too, and that's a big part of coaching people through big changes in their life. Is I always use the analogy of our lives being like an ocean liner. They don't turn on a dime. You turn the wheel and very slowly they turn and they change course. That's what our lives are like too. We're not Porsches that you can, or this isn't Fast and the Furious where you can like put the handbrake on and you're like turn 360 degrees and like go down an alley and like hit a orange stand or something. It doesn't work like that. So slow changes are much better, but they're not as sexy. Resolutions are sexy. They're big and like, yeah, I'm making a stand. I'm going to do this. I feel like I'm doing something. That's a good question, actually. How can you make those small changes feel substantial like a resolution is?
That's a good example. I mean, good question. I think I think at first you may not get as much bang for your buck. Meaning, if you were to say, I'm going to go to the gym, let's say if it's this week, first week of the year, I'm going to go to the gym every day, and you go every day for that week, probably won't. Then you're like, oh, I'm doing this. I feel great. Yay. Whereas if you do something smaller, like I'm going to go to the gym twice this week and make sure I get outside, even if it's around the block, 2 more times a week. You may not get that same level of euphoria. I'm being a little dramatic here, but we'll go with it. That same level of excitement about the change you're making. But what you will make, and that was just an example, but what you will get is you're setting yourself for something you're pretty positive you can do. And so you can, at the end of that, be like, okay, I did that. How was that? Okay, that was really pretty easy this week. Let me go for and add a little increment to it. And so it's less intoxicating, euphoria, whatever you want to call it. If you want to really just throw fireworks up in the air about it. It's you're getting less at one time, but you're getting that gradual positive reinforcement. And then you're less likely to come back and attack yourself for not achieving a goal that was pretty hard to achieve in the first place. You're like, okay, good job. You did that. You're more likely to talk positively to yourself and encouraging. Whereas when you set those really big ones, and even if you hit it for a week, the time as soon as you fall off, that negative talk and criticism is pretty strong, and it can just set you right off the rails to you're not doing anything anymore.
Yeah. And I think you're touching on really 2 important things. It's motivation to do the thing, to start it, and then the upkeep of keeping, continuing the habit. continuing the thing to make it a habit. And we all have those things we don't want to do. And, I have to study for the test, or I have to do this, or I have to write that email or do the report or whatever it is. The best way to get it done, and I know it sounds trite and silly, but is to actually just start it. Like just doing the thing actually gets you over it, makes you feel better because you're actually doing it. And then you're more likely to get it done. And then 2, the upkeep, the maintenance part of it, is having a very specific goal, an end point that you can accomplish and then look back and say, oh, look, I did it. So that's why smaller goals are actually much better, because like you said, I'm going to the gym 7 times a week this week, and then I'm going to like work on my glutes, and then I'm going to like do all this protein powder. It doesn't work because it's too much, and you can't keep track of all that. And it's going to be impossible. Like going to the gym 2 times a week and getting outside and walking around the block, that seems pretty simple. So like by the end of the week, you can look back and say, oh, I went to the gym twice this week and I got outside and I walked around the block. I accomplished, I succeeded. And that's going to encourage you and inspire you to do it again next week. And then you check in the next week. Oh, look, I did it again. Great. I'm going to do it again next week. And then it builds. And then eventually it becomes a habit where you don't have to think about it. You're just doing it. And it's easier to add more stuff to it.
Yeah, I think it's easy to, and to make sure you celebrate what you did do, even if it's not where you want to be, it's a step in the right direction. But if you think about how when people train for a marathon, I know this analogy is always used. No one's going to run. Was it 12 miles or 20? How many miles is a marathon?
26 and a half
that
or
one.
something like that.
26 or something. I'm sure we're going to go with that. Obviously, most people aren't starting off that way. And if you're not a runner at all, you're starting off at half a mile, maybe. And people that are committed, are like really going to do it. They do that. They get that. They understand that they got to do it that way and be patient. Wish we could apply that to all the other things we're trying to change in our life. Because we know it's impossible. When we look at a marathon, most people in their right mind would say it's impossible, even if you're an okay runner, to get to 26 miles without lots of training, time, patience, and small goals. I wish we could please take that framework and apply that to all these other things that we expect ourselves to be able to do in 5 minutes. Like taking that framework and applying it to other changes that we're trying to make, because it's actually a lot of things that we try to do differently, especially if they're kind of bigger changes, I would think would fit into that type of thinking.
Absolutely. And also framing it around things you enjoy doing anyway. People who are really good at marathons and running usually love running and love the exercise part of it. So, for someone like me who probably would get winded walking around the block at this point, because I'm not really an outside cat at this point, I wouldn't enjoy that. And going back to like the stuffing and wine, starting there, what do I like about stuffing and wine? How can I make this healthier? What, can it be a treat at,
That's what I was thinking.
And at the end of the day, or can it be like, because even then, if you have a cheat day, quote, I'm using air quotes, even that can be kind of short-circuiting your journey, because that's like, what I mean? It's like, I have this one day and now I'm going to go crazy this one day, and it kind of erases everything you've done. So even littler, babyier steps than that of like, maybe I'll just have a half a glass of wine every day. It's right. That's kind of healthy, and maybe I'll just have a forkful or two of stuffing just to like satisfy the craving. There's ways you can work from where you're at. Because that's another thing I think where resolutions fail, is that you put your starting point somewhere where you're not even at. Like
Yep.
if your resolution is to go to the gym every day this week and you haven't set foot inside of a gym in 6 months, your body's going to be like, what are you doing? Like,
Yeah.
that's why it's not
Yeah.
going to work.
Yeah. I remember I was talking to a client about something similar to this around the exercise, and they were talking about how in the past they've put like just what we're talking about, like so much pressure on themselves to and overdone it, and then they're too sore, and then they don't want to do it, and then as they approached exercise again, they were being very mindful and intentional about starting small and slowly, and then they ended up enjoying it so much more and were more like pleased with themselves, and they were just more realistic with themselves, and then they were able to really enjoy it so much more than in the past when they put so much pressure on themselves they had actually sucked the enjoyment out of it.
Mm-hmm. That's the thing, is you need to enjoy it, whatever it is. It has to speak to you as an individual. You know, like we keep circling around the getting in shape part of it, which I think is a huge one for everybody. Like, oh man, I got to get in shape now. It's the beginning of the year. It has to be fun for you, and it has to speak to your experience in some way. So like if you're comparing yourself to other people of like, oh, look at that guy, he goes to the gym 6 times a week and he's got, washboard abs, and that's not you. That's not where you're at. That's not your journey. Like, you can be inspired by that and see how it fits into what you're doing, but it's gotta speak to you as a person of, I really enjoy this. I'm going to stick with it because I get something out of it. And then it's going to just organically grow and more things are going to sprout from it, health wise, rather than like,
Yeah.
oh my God, I went to the gym once and I'm sore and I never want to do that again. And then you feel miserable because you feel like you failed.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I feel like we've solved it.
I mean, yeah, it's baby steps, baby steps, baby steps, kind to self. I mean, the other piece of it is, and this is something I talk about tons and tons in my work with my clients, is being kind to yourself when you don't maybe you don't get as far as you wanted to get. You know, how we talk to ourselves, and unfortunately for a lot of people, it's real negative when we don't meet our expectations or our plan, really sets us further off course. And if we were able to better be more understanding and talk to ourselves like we would to somebody else, we would be better able to get back on track to what we want, back on our route of, my words are just never, not all week been not
You're
coming out.
making a ton of sense. Continue.
Yeah, it's just, but I know what I'm saying is so easy to say, and it can be really hard to do when you're feeling disappointed. But that's why expectations of ourselves, of other people, are so important. And when we manage them, we end up less disappointed, less frustrated, and sometimes kinder to ourselves.
Managing expectations and also extending yourself some grace and forgiveness.
Yes.
Because, okay, great, I didn't hit my goal of going to the gym 7 days in a row this week. Why? It's not, that just doesn't exist in a bubble by itself, in a vacuum of, okay, I just didn't go to the gym 7 days. I didn't reach that goal. There's a reason for it. I got really busy at work. My family needed me to do something. I had something else come up. I had an emergency. A lot of times we just see it as that thing. I failed at keeping this goal, when really 20 other things went into you missing that goal. Yeah. Mm-hmm. So just asking why, I think, is a really important thing too. Why didn't I hit that goal? And that nothing's set in stone too. That's another good point about this is, okay, great. I set a goal for myself of going to the gym 7 days in a row. I didn't hit that this week. Why? Oh, well, 7 days is just unobtainable. Like, I can't do it. Okay, great. What is obtainable? Okay, maybe I go 3 times a week. Great. And I try 3 times. Maybe that doesn't work. Oh, maybe I'll try 2 times. Okay, 2 times is working. This feels good. It's also just trial and error sometimes, and not giving up and, missing it once and saying, oh, that's it. I guess I'm, fell off the wagon.
Yeah, I think part of it is comparing ourselves to others. Like, that's another big part of this when it comes to resolutions, because you really kind of just touched on that indirectly, and I'm just kind of highlighting it, that that's another part that gets in the way of coming up with resolutions or goals for ourselves that are really about us and what we want and what we need, versus based upon comparing ourselves to other people, or maybe not feeling good enough or as good as. And when we get into that, we're also going down a slippery slope that's probably not going to end in the results that we were wanting. So I think, I hear so much about social media, and I'm sure you do too, and how much of a negative impact it has on people, particularly when they're struggling with mental health problems, with relationship problems, with self-esteem. Social media is just like, people get caught up in that, and then they're like, I'm going to go do this, and then my life is going to look like that family with their matching pajamas. And I'm like, what is it?
Yeah. Social media, I think, offers shortcuts and quick fixes and feel good moments that in a perfect world inspire us to do two things different, or like try new things and see how they work for us.
Mm-hmm.
But more often than not, I think it's seen more as a shortcut to, I need to do exactly that thing. And if I don't look exactly like that or feel exactly like that, I've failed in some way. Mm-hmm. So, and it's hard sometimes to see that as inspiration rather than a command of like, no, you need to do it just like this. And that's why I enjoy when influencers, especially on social media, show you how they actually get those shots or get those videos. And it's like, they have a team of people doing their hair, setting up the camera and the lights, and like they're laying in a kiddie pool in the middle of a parking lot to get the lighting just right and the waves, and like normal, average, everyday people can't do that. And it's setting up, and then they Photoshop stuff and airbrush and like make all this stuff. It's just, yes, it's a very pretty picture, but that's really all it is. It's somebody who does that for a living. They make money off of it. They are paid to do that. Right. And the more those people specifically can tell people, look, this is not real life. That I'm paid to make pretty pictures for people and like inspire people to do stuff. Mm-hmm. The more I think that message is out there, the more okay it is for people to let go of that idea of like, I have to be like that. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And I think so many times when social media is having such a negative effect on people with where they're trying to be in their life or how they're trying to feel about themselves, it really has to do with, it really affects people when they're struggling. Like if you're pretty content and things are going okay, mental health stable, it doesn't have nearly the impact as when you're feeling really low about yourself. Maybe you're struggling with anxiety or depression, blah, blah, blah. Then social media's impact is like significantly more, help me with the word.
More impactful, whatever the word is. Yeah. And also it just doubles down on the, I've failed in some way because I haven't reached this ideal that I see everywhere. Right. And it's even more important than to refocus on yourself and say, what do I have going for me? What's going right? What am I doing right? And what do I have that makes me feel good? Who do I have in my life that I can talk to that makes me feel good? It's reinvesting in yourself. And that I think ties back to our general discussion tonight about resolutions is, why do you really want to do it? What are you going to get out of it? What are you looking for? And a lot of time, humans are pretty simple animals. Like we make things a lot more complex than they need to be. Mm-hmm. 99% of the time, all these huge resolutions we make and goals we set, it's really just about feeling better and connecting with people and like being happy and fulfilled, and excited about life. I mean, that's all it is. So if you can figure out what part of that equation you're missing, I think it's easier to start setting these little goals and building these habits that will get you there.
Right. Yeah. It's actually, I don't think I've talked about this because we haven't met. Maybe I did, but I've done a lot of that with clients over this month. We've done a lot of looking back over the past year. And because so many people get stuck in what's wrong and what they haven't fixed and what they're struggling with, I did it with tons of people I'm working with, actually going back and looking at all the growth, all the ways that they've progressed and where they've come from since last year at this time. And that's really helped. That's really helped people. Like, oh yeah, oh, I didn't even realize. Like, so it's positive. It's looking at all these areas of growth and where I've really made changes. And then you can take that to the next step, which goes nicely with our New Year's resolution discussion of what do I still want to work on?
Right.
Where am I still? I don't know. I felt like it was a really good way of doing it, of like, okay, let's celebrate all of this. And then maybe we didn't use the word New Year's resolutions, but like, okay, where are we? And where do we still want to make some work? And how do we start that off going into the new year?
Yeah. And that kind of ties into the conversation we had with Neil last season, our most popular episode. So I'm going to mention it as many times as possible, about focusing on the joy and like the things you do get right and the things that are making you happy and building on that. It's easier to see the pain points when you have everything positive in front of you saying like, oh, this is all the stuff that's going right. This is where I'm happy. This is where I'm living like that self. And like, okay, now it's easier to see these 3 places that I could work on and, I can improve a little bit rather than saying everything needs to change. My life is miserable. I'm not good enough or smart enough. And then, geez, you're already drowning before you even jump in the pool,
I'm glad you tied that back to Neil King and his being our most popular. And it's funny because I don't know if our listeners know this, but I know Neil personally. We're colleagues and friends. And I've seen once or twice where I've seen him have to utilize that entire joy management strategy with himself, where he's shared with me, oh, this happened. Oh my gosh, this morning. I go, how did joy management go? How'd you do it? And he would like talk to me about it. It was really cool. And we got to chat about that. But yeah, that's a really good way of putting that I hadn't thought of.
Yeah. And I think that is a good way to kind of start tying up the loose ends of this episode, or kind of like,
yeah, agreed.
Yeah. So, and I think number one, resolution wise, ask yourself if you really need to make one. And if you don't need to make one and you're happy and you're pretty content where you're at, don't make one. You don't need to. It's not, they're not a have to. There's no law that says you have to make a New Year's resolution. So you don't have to. And then number two, if you really do want to make one, ask yourself why. Ask yourself why like 5 times. And then I think at the end of that, the 5th why, I think you'll get to the real reason why. And then make little teeny goals that move you an inch down the field, because then they become habits, they become healthy habits. And then it's easier to add more onto it later instead of trying to pile everything on at once.
Right. We fixed it for everyone. I mean, anyone that was wondering about this, look at that. We gave you all the information as to how to navigate this.
Would you add anything else to that I missed?
No, I love it.
Okay. No. Hey, I'll take that. Okay. I'll take that as a win. And another important thing is trying to focus on what's going right.
Yes.
I think a lot of times we feel like that's a cop out, or we're like looking at the world through rose-colored glasses if we're focusing on the positive or what's going on. It's not. It's just as valid as focusing on the negative, and it's actually healthier and get you further down the field than if you just focus on all the negative stuff. So so try that as well. Focus on the joy management. Go back and listen to that episode with Neil King. It's awesome.
Yes.
Okay. I feel like that's a good place to tie this one up. Yeah.
Season 3, episode 1.
Season 3, episode 1 in the books, in the can, as they say.
You like to say in the can. That's Ralph's
well,
phrase.
That's the movie making, TV making parlance is, because they used to put film in cans back in the day before it was all on the cloud.
Okay.
Yeah, I worked.
I believe you. I'm listening.
I worked in a movie theater for 4 years, and I used to have to clean the projectors and grease them, and the movies would come in cans, like those big hexagonal metal cans.
The tin. Mm-hmm.
And we would have to build them at night. I've built a couple movies in my time. You splice them together and put the trailers on the front, and it was fun. I really enjoyed it.
Ralph was responsible for our cinema entertainment.
I used to be a responsible adult, and now look at me. Fallen so far. So thanks everybody for listening. If you want to get in touch with us, you can find us through the Hey Let Me Ask You Something website. You can find us on Instagram and on Facebook. Just search for Hey Let Me Ask You Something. You can find me at True Engine Coaching. I am also on LinkedIn and Facebook and Twitter and Instagram and TikTok. Just search for Ralph or True Engine Coaching and you'll find me. And how can people reach you?
Well, first, you forgot YouTube. We on YouTube also?
We're on YouTube too, yes.
You can actually watch us on YouTube.
Yeah.
You can contact me. I am taking new clients in my practice at the Philly Therapist Kristin at Gmail. My website is thephillytherapistkristen.com. You can also learn a little bit more about me on my Psychology Today profile. So hopefully that was enough things. I know Ralph always has a long laundry list, but that's what I got today.
And also, the first of the year is also a great time for people to kind of reevaluate where they're at and where they want to go. So we are both accepting new clients. So if anybody out there feels like they could use a little booster or have a outside voice to kind of bounce stuff off of, that's why we're here. This is what we do for a living. Cool. That's it.
Thanks everybody
for listening.
We missed you all.
We missed you.
See you again. Hear from you.
We'll see you next time. Thanks, everybody.